you freaks and ghouls, slashers and psychopaths, scaredy cats and scaredy dogs. I'm your horror host for the most, the Headless Glen, and welcome to Graveyard Grumblings, where today I am having a spoiler review reaction ramble to Scream 2022. I saw this film last night, and these were my thoughts. Now, I have a lot to say, and I was going to wing it last night, but I felt like I had missed a lot of what I wanted to express. So I am recording again this morning. I will get this out of the way first. I did not like this movie. For starters, the whole film is just slow and boring. And there's no moments that really stood out. Not even the killer reveal. There were a lot of problems with the characters, just in a broad sense. Quite a few characters should have been dead, but aren't, which makes the killers feel incredibly incompetent and incapable, which they kind of are, because a crippled girl was able to beat the shit out of them. But honestly, they aren't the only ones with this problem. Characters just act stupid. Like Sam considered for a second her sister could be the killer, even though she's crippled, tied up, and couldn't be doing shit. Like she could barely wheelchair herself the other day. Or Dewey walking all the way up to a killer to shoot them. Like, you have a gun. Heck, some things just happen and characters are like, I'm surprised that worked. It's just intolerable. All of the cast is just so bland, I couldn't give two shits if and when they died. And that goes for the recurring cast as well. They had nothing to make old fans or new fans get invested with these characters. On that topic, none of the deaths had any impact in the moment, and none of them had any real lasting impact on the characters for any real amount of time. It felt like the characters didn't care, which gave me another reason not to. It felt so contrived in the way all the old characters are brought to Woodsboro. It really felt so forced. They just all started appearing, basically. Also, how far is Woodsboro from where Sam and the guy live? Because it could make the starting scenes a bit strange, which it already kind of was with how it was shot. But I'm curious. Honestly, it feels like a fanfic and how so many characters are related to, in one way or another, older characters from the franchise. Also, the idea of Billy Loomis having a kid is so stupid because it seems to retcon the character a little bit from the original film and how he was portrayed and his interactions with Sydney. But then again, the third film seemed to retcon Billy's character a bit anyway. So it's not that I'm completely upset by this point, it just seems fairly hilarious in how this was written. Star Wars, anyone? Anyway, Sam, the child of Billy Loomis, actually talking to and being led by her dead father and being worried she would become evil is so stupid, and honestly, it could potentially come off as a bit offensive. Now, I'm not one who normally harps on these topics, but when it comes to mental illness, I do have some problems. The film paints mental illness as a contagious disease, which to an extent it kind of is, but only to a certain degree and only for certain things. They portray it as something that makes you want to hurt people, or even worse, like a goddamn superpower. It feels like it condemns children who are born to fucked up people, saying they, in some ways, will end up being fucked up just like their parents. I don't know, it just felt shitty to me. That could just be a personal thing, so I understand if you personally don't have that gripe with the film. I'm saying all that to say, it ruins the realism of the franchise. Far worse than 3's voice changer ever did. That never bothered me in the first place though, so this is a huge thing. Unrelated, but for me, it was laughable how the film seemed to hold on to things for like so long. Because it felt like the requel talk just kept going and going and going, as well as the fake out scene, the 3 predictable fake outs when the music would just like build up and there would be no jump scare or whatnot. And that happened 3 times in a row, and it was so predictable that that was gonna happen. It was almost as predictable as the killers, because you know Amber's going to be the killer as like soon as she shows up. And then the guy, it was really easy to deduce that as well. But seriously, who is this film for? I'm serious. Who is it for? For me, it feels like it alienates both old and new fans. Because it's not for older fans. It seems to use the stab films / fanbase as a metaphor for the Scream fandom, and kind of paints them in a negative light, as well as does nothing with the characters the fans have come back to see. Plus, it seems to not really disregard most of the franchise past the first film, but at least seems to ignore them to an extent. It's weird. I mean, one character from those films shows up, but there's nothing from like Scream 4 or anything like that a lot of people were hoping would come to Scream 5. It's not for new fans either, because it brings up a lot of things that you would have to have watched the previous films to know. And it doesn't feel like, you know, something that you could just go in and watch. You would have to have at least some passing knowledge of the original films, or at least the first film, because it doesn't feel like the story is complete without that for some reason. And I've heard some people refer to this film as a love letter, but it feels more like a sloppy breakup text after a kick to the balls. The film repeatedly says it all goes back to the original. But you should honestly just go back and watch the original instead of watching this film. I do not like this film, as you can tell. If you liked it, great. I'm glad for you. I really am. I wish I could like this film. It's just I can't. There's just so much bogging it down, and I have so little I actually like about the film the more I think about it. And the thing is, I feel like this was a huge misstep. And I'm one of the weirdos who fucking like the first 2 seasons of MTV's Scream TV show, where it has nothing to do with Ghostface. Because I'm not against change for the franchise. But this felt so stupid. Feels like something some teenager in high school would come up after they watched the first film. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go fight my urges brought on by Daddy Loomis to kill again. But with all that said, stay frosty. And if you watch this film, I really sincerely hope you enjoy it.